सर आपको शेयर किया व्हाट्सएप पे।
के पास ना एक सैनिटाइजर का वो रख दीजिए।
सपना आज का नहीं कल का। मेरा कहाँ पर देखा?
विशाल तो सीट बन रही है। ऐसे बात हो रहा है?
कल है।
नहीं, आपको वीडियो का इसका नहीं आ रहा। आरोग्य बोलते हैं। अच्छा अभी लाइव हो गया सारे जगह? लाइव हो गया? लाइव कर दीजिए। लाइव बताओ क्या है? इसी वक्त तो ये अभी इसको यहाँ पे व्यू दिखाइए वो वाला हमारा जो ये है नहीं उसमें पिन चेंज मांग रहा है क्या वो?
हाँ सर अब आपका डेट आ रहा है व्हाट्सएप कर दो मेन नंबर व्हाट्सएप हाँ
बस इसके बाद नहीं है मेरा
फटाफट
अभी नहीं करना है
तुम्हारा एक बार और नहीं करूँगा
मुझे ऑर्डर तो तीनों है
पूजा पाठ करते हो अनुश्री कहाँ गई? अनुश्री को बुलाओ नहीं थे। अनुश्री in all probability CEO sir you have to say that वो कहने की जरूरत नहीं है सर जैसे ही है ना वो मिनिस्टर को और दोनों मिनिस्टर को सर फ्लावर दे देते हैं ठीक है टीचर को वहाँ पे
से मैं इंट्रोड्यूस करूँगी फाइनलिस्ट वी वेलकम यू
नहीं वो पहले ही कर देते हैं
it's nothing different from me
everything has to be said about that है ना वो पहले ही कर देते हैं ठीक है और आप सर प्रवीण सर आप सेक्रेटरी को
क्या
दोनों को लाइव करो
सीओ सर दोनों मिनिस्टर को देंगे
कहाँ से जाएगा यार
विंडो से बाहर से
उससे कौन डबल से क्लोज करेगा
डबल तो टच एंड सोशल डिस्टेंस का लाइन बन जाता है उससे
ऐसे करेंगे
एक हाथ से दूसरे हाथ जा रहा है
लाइव इन 4 मिनट्स दिखा रहा है अभी तो नहीं लाइव है लाइव इन 4 मिनट्स दिखा रहा है
कैमरा पे कैमरा फॉलो
व्हाट फोन कर लेगा सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग के समय
आप नहीं
asked to be UK
not really just class
touch and on
और सैनिटाइजर का बॉटल भी रख दीजिए सब
ऐसे ऐसे लगा करना
नहीं मतलब आफ्टर एक्सरसाइज PS वाले आपके पास
YouTube पे सही है। Facebook पे चलो तो ये वाली विंडो नहीं YouTube पे सही लाइव।
हाँ ये कर
चेक करवा दे।
यहाँ से ले रहे हैं ना ये वाला फोन से ले रहे हैं बाकी यहाँ पर
लाइव नहीं जा रहा है। ये बहुत अच्छा है। लाइव हो गया।
ये वाला नहीं
जो लगा वो निकाल नहीं चल रहा है। इसको
हाँ I mean, we do like stand here, we do have but we cannot stand here in the sense of some person.
सेक्रेटरी को ले आओ
कैमरा व्यू से मतलब है मूवमेंट एकदम नहीं होना चाहिए लास्ट टाइम वाज वेरी पर्टिकुलर अबाउट दैट मूवमेंट नहीं ठीक है
मुंबई जा रहे हो तुम्हें तो नहीं समझ रही है हम लोग सो रहे हैं फिर अपने कुछ हम सो रहे होते हैं ना हम लोग जगह वो दिल्ली से साउंड आ रहा है ये नहीं वो वाला इसके लिए
सही में जल्दी
इसलिए यहाँ बैठता हूँ क्या बनाना वो तो किसके बनना नहीं चलेगा तो ऐसे ही घर वाले क्यों ले लें
welcome, Excellencies, colleagues around the world and here in Geneva. Welcome to today's COVID-19 Member State Information Session. We have a very full agenda today, and it's my pleasure to introduce the Director General, Dr. Tedros. Dr. Tedros, you have the floor.
Thank you, Tim. Honourable Ministers, Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends, thank you for joining us for this week's Member State briefing. We have a full schedule today, so I will keep my remarks brief. First, we will hear from Her Excellency, Mrs. Acosta, Vice Minister of Health of the Dominican Republic, on her country's experience in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. Muchas gracias, Your Excellency. Next up will be Professor Lothar Wieler, President of the Robert Koch Institute in Germany and the Chair of the Review Committee, the International Health Regulations, during the COVID-19 response. Professor Wieler has kindly accepted to attend this briefing, together with the Vice Chair of the Review Committee, Professor Lucille Bloomberg from South Africa, and the rapporteur, Professor Breben Avisland from Norway. I was pleased to learn that the committee has already met 3 times since I convened the group on September 8. In accordance with the International Health Regulation, I also invited Member States, UN agencies and non-state actors to nominate representatives to the committee. More than 60 Member States, 5 UN agencies and 25 non-state actors attended the first open meeting on the 9th of September. 5 Member States submitted their statements to the review committee. I encourage all of you, all Member States, to provide your inputs to the review committee in advance of their next open meeting, which is set for the 7th of October. Your input is essential to guide their deliberations. I have also asked the Chair to provide an update to the Executive Board special session on the 6th of October, together with the co-chairs of the Independent Panel for Pandemic Preparedness and Response and the Chair of the Independent Oversight and Advisory Committee. The work of these 3 committees, which I established as requested by WHO Resolution 73.1, is crucial for our ongoing assessment of the COVID-19 response. I look forward to the outcome of their deliberations. We will then be hearing from our Health Emergencies Chief, Dr. Mike Ryan, and other colleagues about country priorities and needs, including our efforts to support preparedness, resilience, response and recovery, along with an overview of how we report on the WHO COVID-19 response budget. Finally, today we would hear an update from Dr. Bruce Aylward on progress with the ACT or with ACT Accelerator. Tomorrow, the ACT Accelerator is set to release its status report and plan, providing an overview of goals, approach, achievements to date and near-term priorities. An investment case will also be released, laying out the economic rationale for investing in the ACT Accelerator. This will guide the coming scale-up phase of the ACT Accelerator. Bruce will go into more detail on each. We're also looking forward to a high-level session on the ACT Accelerator at the UN General Assembly next Wednesday, convened by the Secretary General and co-hosted by the United Kingdom, South Africa, and WHO. Thank you all once again for your continued support and commitment. I thank you. Tim, back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tedros, for your opening remarks. It's now my honour to invite the Vice Minister of Health from the Dominican Republic, Her Excellency Mrs. Acosta, to provide your presentation on the Dominican Republic's response to COVID-19. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Muy buenos días, buenas tardes.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Greetings to everybody, to the Director General of the organization, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, and on behalf of my country and on behalf of that country's government, may I convey my thanks to you for the opportunity you've given us to share some information about our response to the COVID-19 pandemic in our country. We're grateful to PAHO and other local organizations for the support and assistance we've been given.
Vamos a tener la oportunidad de compartir.
We're happy to have this opportunity to share with you some information, starting with this first graph, which will give you an impression of the stages we went through between March and September this year, how the pandemic developed. On the left-hand side, with the red columns, you'll be able to see the various stages which the country went through at the early moment of the pandemic. That was when we closed our borders completely and declared a first state of emergency. We made that declaration on the 18th of March. We also restricted, of course, the movements of our citizens. And it goes without saying that we held a lot of meetings and did a lot of consultation to decide upon the measures to be taken. This period ran from March, more or less, for 2 months. Then if you look at the middle section, the grey columns, you can see what happened when we started to lift restrictions gradually. We had quarantine, but obviously the situation is having a very considerable economic effect. So that was why we gradually started to open up and resume certain types of activity in the country very cautiously. You can see that we also lifted the curfew which we had installed. After we started this gradual opening up, we almost inevitably saw an increase in the number of cases, and that had a particular impact in the second half of July. We had to bring the curfew back in at that time because of the increase in the number of cases. As a country, we selected 5 basic indicators on the basis of which we monitor the way in which the pandemic is developing. We have 10 million inhabitants in the Dominican Republic. Our attack rate in May was 2.75, but you can see that the rate rose to its highest point, 16.82 in July. At the moment, it's about 7.73. The positivity rate for diagnosis tests is also extremely important as far as we're concerned as an indicator. Again, the highest figure there was July, 33.55. We're now somewhere between 12.6 and 14.65. We're making a great deal of effort in this area because we're trying to bring that positivity percentage rate down to 10 if we possibly can. The number of tests is also extremely important because, apart from anything else, it indicates how hard we're working on this. We've increased the number of tests per million inhabitants steadily, and at the moment we're, I think, close to about 45,000 per million of the population. On the fatality rate, At the moment, that is below 2%, it's at 1.89. The occupancy of ICU beds, which was very high in July at over 80%, has dropped over the last couple of weeks, certainly since the middle of August. And at the moment, that figure is somewhere between 35 and 37%. So it's manageable. Now moving on to the chronological stages which we went through in strategic preparedness and response. Immediately when we started getting news of what was happening in other countries, we started making plans for our response to and coping with COVID-19. We detected the first case of COVID in the Dominican Republic in March. It was found in an Italian citizen. We prepared our contingency plans, and on the 19th of March, we declared a state of emergency with quarantine measures, which I mentioned to you at the beginning of my presentation. As I also said earlier, we started to lift restrictions and open up on the 1st of July. However, on the 21st of July, we felt obliged to declare a second state of emergency with a lockdown and quarantine. There were presidential elections at about this time, and starting on the 1st of August, the transition team, the new incoming government, carried out an evaluation of what we were doing in response to and in managing the COVID-19 pandemic. And we came up with the plan which we have been implementing since the 16th of August when the new government came into power. On the 1st of September, we extended the second state of emergency. We had, of course, the tools which had been published by the World Health Organization, and they were what we basically used in preparing our own response to the pandemic in our country. You can see that we have 9 basic pillars in our response. We've emphasized coordination, planning, and monitoring. You can see our President and our Vice President, as well as our Minister of Health on this slide, and they are engaging in activities which are held on a regular basis for the multi-sectoral teams to make sure that we are strengthening health care and the health system in both the public and private sector. Through the COVAX facility, we are guaranteeing our participation in what will happen when a vaccine is found too. Pillar 2, risk communication and community participation. These things we believe to be absolutely essential. We have regular press conferences with the health team, and we also have a bulletin which is issued every day. At the same time, we have a platform, an online platform, which provides data and information in real time and to which anyone can have access. Pillar 3, surveillance, rapid response teams, and case investigation. We have stepped up a community surveillance, and we are monitoring zero prevalence following the relevant protocols of the World Health Organization. It's about 0.5% for us at the moment, this zero prevalence rate. Home visits are carried out to do contact tracing and to investigate cases. That's also part of Pillar 3. Pillar 4 covers actions taken as part of our new response plan for tourism and health. We're working very, very closely with the various authorities and departments which are involved in tourism in our country to make sure that the plan we have developed, particularly at entry points and airports especially, are being followed. We have installed the installation cameras at airports to take temperatures, and we have random and rapid tests being provided as well. Pillar 5, our national laboratory and its capacity. We've been strengthening carried out. Furthermore, the time required to process them has been coming down, which is very welcome. Pillar 6, infection prevention and control and related protocols. This basically means providing training to health staff at all levels of care. Pillar 7, case management. Here we're working on updating the clinical management protocol. We're also improving and strengthening care provided before people get to clinic and improving our triage system. And we are strengthening response capacity and making more ICU beds than we previously had available. At the same time, we are recruiting approximately 1,000 new doctors and health workers who, after their training, are gradually being moved into the workforce specifically to boost our response to COVID-19. Pillar 8, an enormous effort has been made over the last few weeks in order to ensure that we replenish our stocks of equipment. That means medicines, medical supplies, and PPE. We've also been shown a great deal of solidarity in that people have provided us with donations. Pillar 9, which we consider crucially important, that is to maintain all the other health services and systems operating in our country. We have tried to get our population health programs such as maternal and child health, adolescent health, NCDs, HIV, tuberculosis and immunizations back up and running. And next month we will be strengthening a campaign which is already underway to provide vaccination against influenza for specific targeted groups within the population. As you can see, we're making enormous efforts to improve the situation and enhance our response capacity, but unfortunately we still have major challenges to face. For a start, we have to make the national laboratory more efficient so that it can increase the number of PCR tests even further. The same goes for active community surveillance and institutional surveillance action. That means actively searching people in the community out through contact tracing where that is necessary, and to isolate cases where that is required. We also need to plan for recruitment of more trained people so that we can maintain the level of care we're providing, and we need to increase yet further the number of ICU beds. Teams in hospitals and teams outside hospitals have to be guaranteed provision of PPE, so we have to deal with that as well. We are part of the Solidarity Trial of the World Health Organization, which is very important to us. It's essential that we have better intersectoral coordination too, because that will ensure that public health measures are known, understood and followed in the food chain, in public transport and in other sectors of the economy where activity and work is still going on and where this has to be ensured. We need to be certain that essential health services are maintained, as I said, and that we can continue through our primary health care strategy to have a model of integrated networks which will enable us to respond more effectively and in a way that has greater impact. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Vice Minister of Health from Dominican Republic. And I trust you can stay with us a little longer this morning, in order for you to participate if there are any questions coming from our member state delegates. It's now my pleasure to move to the second item on our agenda for today. That is an update on the IHR Review Committee's progress and programme of work, and my pleasure to introduce Professor Lothar Weiler, Chair of the IHR Review Committee. Professor, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Your Excellencies, Honourable Ministers, it's my pleasure and honour to deliver a short overview of what the IHR Review Committee has pursued so far. Could I have the first slide? that's another slide than I've expected, frankly speaking.
With apologies, Professor, if you give us one moment.
Sure.
Professor, I'm sorry, we've not received any slides for your presentation.
Okay, then I go through it. The Secretariat has set up the slide, so I just briefly mention what we've done. I think this is, I can do this then without slides. We've had so far 3 closed meetings on the 9th of September, 15th and 22nd, and I have the honor to chair this as I was nominated by DG Dr. Tedros, and again, I'd like to express my gratitude for this honor. We also had an open meeting already on September 9th, and the meeting reports, as well as other informations, they can be found on the RC website for your interest. The basic outcomes were, so the committee agreed to meet on a weekly basis, at least until November 2020, so a pretty ambitious committee I chair here, I have to say. And we also will have monthly open meetings. The first open meeting already statements were submitted from Australia, Japan, Norway, Slovakia, as well as the USA. In addition, to get a first insight into and also be able to get insight from those who have already done work on previous research committees, review committees, we also have interviewed Dr. Didier Roussin, the former chair of the review committee on the second extension and on Ebola outbreak, as well as Professor Harvey Feinberg, the former chair of the review committee on H1N1. Very interesting and insightful talks, I have to say. They were very, very elegantly introduced to us, and we very much profited from their experience. And I guess we will also come back to them and ask for their advice later on during the process. And also, we interviewed Gianluca Bursi, the former legal counsel of WHO, as well as Dr. Gurnel Roudier, the former director country preparedness and HRR WHO, who gave us legal advice, also very insightful, so that we have really very much insight into the IHR, apart from all the members of our committees who anyway have huge expertise in this area. We also agreed, and this is very important, on the time frame as well as on some functional issues here. We have established 3 subgroups already, which will discuss and prioritize areas for review. And these are not limited to, but mostly including 3 areas. And we nominated both coordinators of these 3 areas, as well as of members of three areas, which will particularly work on these topics. One area is preparedness. So this would be exactly the second slide, please. One is preparedness. So this subgroup will monitor the monitoring and accessing IHR functions and capacities. The second group that has been set up covers the aspect of alert, basically focusing on risk assessment as well as communication, information sharing, and outbreak verification. Also, they will touch upon the emergency committees, the fake declarations, and possible immediate level of alert. And the third group, the response group, they will focus on coordination and collaboration and compliance with temporary recommendations, for example, travel measures, which obviously are of high importance when it comes to implementing the IHR. So the next slide, please, gives an overview on the timeline. As I already mentioned, this indeed is a very ambitious group, and they will now, the subgroup as well as the groups will now meet 2 times a week until inside of this framework here. So as I mentioned, on the first 2 days we had the first open meeting of the IHR Review Committee. Deliberative closed meetings on a weekly basis have been decided until November 2020. We have open meetings, as already mentioned, on a monthly basis, where we expect the input of member states, which are of high importance for us, obviously. IHR can only live from the member states. They have to accept it and they have to live it. And the next open meeting, by the way, will be the 7th of October 2020. So the first goal is that we present the progress on the 6th of October of 2020 to the special session of the Executive Board. And also we target for the 9th of November 2020 meeting, where we want to report to the resumed WH 73. Our goal is to share the findings and exchanging views among the chairs of the different review mechanisms as necessary also. So we have to meet, in particular I will meet the chairs of the IPPR, the IOIC and IHR review committee to make it clear that there are no duplications in the work we are doing. I think this is a very sensitive and important step. And we target to the January 2021 to report to the 148 executive board members. And lastly, and this so far is seen as the end of our working period, we will see whether this holds true then, but we want to report in May to the WHO World Health Assembly in the 74th World Health Assembly. So that's basically in brief what we've done so far over the last 3 weeks. So much from my side. Thank you very much for your attention and giving me the floor.
Thank you very much, Professor Vardhan, for your presentation, and I was pleased to see that we managed to get the slides up, and thank you for your flexibility in relationship to that. I also hope, Professor, that you will be able to stay on for a little bit longer. I'm sure that there will be some questions or comments from member states. And now I would like to introduce the first of the presentations from the Secretariat. That's an update on the Partners Platform, the SPH portal, and the COVID Fund implementation. And I'd like to give the floor to Dr. Mike Ryan to lead the session off. Over to you, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. And greetings, Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you all for joining the briefing today. We're going to have a demo of the system, so I'm going to try and keep my comments brief, and I'm sure make the time for discussion as long as possible afterwards. Today's presentation will, next slide there please, will cover 3 interconnected WHO digital platforms that have been developed to support member states to address COVID-19 risks, to facilitate transparency of funding flows and strengthen our long-term emergency preparedness to mitigate the impact of health security threats. These 3 platforms are the COVID-19 Partners Platform, which supports COVID-19 readiness and response, the WHO Programme Budget COVID-19 Portal, which provides accountability for COVID-19 funds received, and the Strategic Partnership for IHR and Health Security Portal, which supports country, donor and partner alignment towards emergency preparedness. And this portal, last one I mentioned, has been in place for a number of years now, and we'll show you the timeline on that later. Now, all of these platforms support how WHO member states, partners and donors can better prepare and manage health emergencies in future. And I would just recognise in the room we have 2 ADGs, Joanne Major and Sosei Fal. We have Imre Hollow from the finance side of things, Stella Chungang from Director of Preparedness, Ludi. Zoe Toro works on the Strategic Partners Portal. Lucy Boulanger, who's been central figure with her team in driving the Partners Portal. And thanks to all of them, and they're here to answer any of your questions. This is their work and the work of our regions and our country offices. Next slide. Again, the demo will bring out a lot of this, so I won't go into details, but just to say we've really tried to leverage and link these 3 portals in a way that they're synergistic. And again, thanks to the different teams who've worked on these products from different perspectives, but have really come together to try and make these operate as one and operate in a way that's easy to use for our partners. In particular, the objectives for the portals are laid out there, but essentially providing visibility for country plans and needs and donor commitments, transparency and accountability to member states and donors around funds provided, and again, disseminating IHR monitoring and evaluation outputs and national preparedness capacity levels, and trying to link, these critical gaps in capacity with the investments needed to fix them and to create that sense of country ownership around those two issues, with external partners coming in to support both on assessment, on gap filling and on financial investment. Next slide, please. To support and facilitate the work being done collaboratively between countries, WHO launched the COVID-19 Partners Platform with the UN Development Coordination Office under the leadership of Robert Piper, and we again would like to thank particularly the resident coordinator system and our colleagues in the UN, and again recognise the way in which the United Nations has really come together at country level in support of member states. This approach is the fruits of work, not just of WHO, but many of our partners. Right now, over 5,500 government, UN entity and partner users are registered on the site, and it's being actively used by 142 countries, including 100 countries that have uploaded their national plans and have used the action checklist to track the implementation of all their activities under their national preparedness and response plans for COVID. Actions are taken across 9 pillars of public health, ones that we've seen in the SPRP previously, and they're aligned with IHR for real-time updating of capacities that are being strengthened. The Partners Platform also links to the SPH portal, as mentioned before, to align countries and donors and partners towards sustainable preparedness. So the platform is essentially streamlining the planning and monitoring of the global response with transparency that I don't think we've seen before in multi-country situations, and giving the ownership and the centrality to governments and member states in bringing partners together at country level to define and implement country plans, to cost those plans, and making the investments from outside transparent and directed at the priorities as set by the countries, not necessarily as those set from outside. Next slide, please. The WHO Programme Budget Portal, again, with recognition for Imre and Raoul and the colleagues on the finance side, and again, I don't get a chance to say this very often, but in my 25 years working on epidemics and emergencies, I have never seen the business operations side of WHO work with such energy, such professionalism, and such support to us. We could not do what we do without the support of that team across so many of the platforms, from finance to security to human resources to information technology. So thank you, Imre. Thank you, Raoul. The portal really makes transparent when WHO receives funds and how they are utilised and allocated. It's based on the same data and principles as the WHO Programme Budget Portal, but it's linked to the SPRP pillars and is updated weekly. And it's a really good resource to see how funds are flowing through WHO, where they're flowing to, and how they're being utilised. Next slide, please. The Strategic Partnership for IHR. I know this is Stella Ludi's baby for a very long time. And again, in that sense, this portal, in some sense, was the precursor, and in some sense, the spiritual centre of how WHO works to drive capacity strengthening, not from a top-down approach, but with a country-centred approach. Countries being able to assess their own performance, use external evaluations, after-action reviews, intra-action reviews, and exercises to establish the gaps in national preparedness, but preparing national public health preparedness plans, public health security plans, but then using this portal to define the investments needed, and then being able to match that with donor investments across the board. And Moody has told me many stories in the past where we found sometimes 6 donors investing in lab capacity and nobody investing in surveillance capacity. And this kind of portal allows investors to see where the money is going, where the true gaps are, based on the country's assessment of the gaps, based on our member states' plan of action to increase national health security. The slide provides a brief overview of the milestones. I won't go through the full history, but essentially we've been working on this since after the West Africa Ebola outbreak. It went live in December 2015. The G7 summit in 2015 committed to continue supporting public health security preparedness capacities, and has been supported through that G7 process, and also in the high-level meeting on health security preparedness in Seoul in 2017. So this has been on the radar of many international agencies, and I think this is a resource and a platform that many, not only the countries doing capacity building, but countries investing in capacity building, have really wanted WHO to advance and develop. Next slide. The SPH portal is accessed by all 194 member states. The portal, as I said, tracks and shares information on more than 2,000 health security investments and activities from over 80 partners around the world. It also supports WHO's resource mapping, REMAP, which involves mapping all available national and subnational financial and human resources that can be applied to health security preparedness. I think I need to click again to show an example. Let me click again, it may not work. Sometimes these don't work. Yeah, we lost it. Anyway, that's probably a good opportunity for me to stop. But just to say that that REMAP tool has been used in Chad recently for health security investments and activities from over 14 partners. So the portal supports this resource mapping and provides data on global partner investments for preparedness. So I think you'll see that these are three highly interlinked portals, and again, my thanks to all in WHO who've worked to bring these together in a way that member states get a good user manual and are able to utilize these platforms to the best possible results for citizens. So with that, I think I'm supposed to be handing over. I don't know, is it to you, Lucy, or is it to do a demo? Thank you for your attention. Sorry for buzzing through that, but I just want to try and maximize the time for the demonstration. Over to you, Lucy.
Thank you, Mike. As Mike mentioned, I will go ahead and give you all a tour of the COVID-19 Partners platform. Here we see the landing page of the platform, and this URL will be shared with everyone. The countries, this is where stakeholders can register for access to the Partners platform. Countries control who has access and who can upload information on the Partners platform, and once you become a user, you can view all the information from all countries. The first functionality is here in the country info page. Let's see, apologies. We'll go ahead and show you the registered sign-in, and it is located in the WHO space and also has the security of WHO as well. So here we are in the Partners platform, and we'll go through the functionalities. First, we'll take a look at the country info page, and we'll choose a country here. I'll choose Belize. And we can see here, thank you to Belize for the government of Belize for allowing us to share the information. Belize has uploaded 3 plans, the national plan, multi-agency plan, and a WHO country plan. And those plans are available for users to download. And there is a repository here of 106 countries' plans uploaded on the platform. You can also see the users from each country, and they come from government, UN entities, and partners. The second functionality is the action checklist. And here we can see that there are the 9 pillars of public health and maintaining essential health services. And under each category, we can take a look at the actions that are being implemented and also that have been completed in countries. We'll take a look here at Indonesia, and this is the first pillar of public health coordination. So we can see here that the activities Indonesia has implemented. As well, these activities are aligned with IHR capacities and can be tracked over time and linked into the SPH portal for long-term preparedness tracking. As well, the activity checklist here in Indonesia was used for the intra-action review, and we thank also Indonesia for sharing this information with us and allowing us to share with all of you. Assessments can be done at the national level or at the subnational level and can be tracked and time tagged over time. And some countries have chosen to use the checklist as a national tool for tracking activities throughout their country. The third functionality is resource needs, and we'll be taking a look here at Pakistan. And we can see here that Pakistan has uploaded a total of 595 million in resource needs, both financial and supply. And these needs can be detailed, or if a country chooses to simply upload a total for each pillar to keep it simple, you can upload a total for each of the 9 pillars quite quickly and have those needs be viewed by all stakeholders. And stakeholders include donors. So we'll go ahead and show you next some of the resource tracking. Before that, I want to inform that there is now a dynamic costing tool for countries to use. If countries prefer to look at forecasted costing, the tool is available and on the landing page, and countries have needs that are changing based on caseloads, etc., and so your resource needs can be updated as frequently as a country would like. This fourth functionality, the resource tracking, we can see here that we're tracking 7.4 billion in contributions, and there are a total of 742 contributions tracked. Those are global contributions. They do include contributions coming to WHO, which is data we get from the PEB portal, which you'll be seeing next. So here, if we take a look we'll take a look at one country, we'll take a look at Ethiopia, and we can see that there are a total of 98 million in contributions being tracked from 11 different contributing entities. As well, the dashboard that is connected and part of the platform will allow the user to analyze the data that's in the platform. So as you can see here, the opening of the dashboard lets you also filter that information by region or by country. Here we can see the number of countries that have uploaded action checklists and resource needs, etc. We can also see a map and interact with that map of countries that have uploaded plans. We can get detailed views of the country's plans as well as their checklists and which pillars they're implementing activities in. As well, we can look at contribution flows on the dashboard. Here we see that there are 7.4 billion US dollars in contributions being tracked, of which nearly 4 billion are towards the 9 pillars of public health. The others are towards socioeconomic resource plans, and the 9.1 billion of country resource needs that have been uploaded. You can take a look at then some of the resource needs by country. We'll go ahead and open up the map, and the darker blue are countries with resource needs less than 10 million, and it goes up into the darker orange of higher needs. We can also take a look at the contributions here by country, and we'll be able to look at the proportion of those contributions towards the resources. So countries that have less than 25% of their need being met by contributions will be in the dark red here. We can then identify the priority gaps globally. We can also list the countries and by funding gap. Those are when neither domestic contributions or international contributions meet the need. And we can take a look also over time, and there are ways to also filter the information for earmarked and expenditure types. And all users can see all information to map also the resource needs over contributions for each country, also by size of the epidemic and the number of confirmed cases, and again over time. We can take a look at the resource needs that are being submitted, and clearly we can see here that the highest resource needs are submitted for Pillar 9, maintaining essential health services, and next Pillar 7, which is case management, and that includes supplies as well. We can also look at the resource needs by plans. Most of those resource needs are coming from the national plans, and some from multi-agency and WHO country office plans as well. We can also see here a Sankey diagram, which we can interact with of all contribution flows. We can select out if we want a region or a particular country and see a subset of the contributions by one particular or 3 or 4 particular regions. And we'll see that come up. And as well, we can have all users see not only the data dashboard, but they can interact with the data dashboard. The data is also downloadable. Data from resource needs and costing needs can be downloaded in Excel for users as well. Thank you very much. And I will go ahead and pass back to Mike.
Thank you, Dr. Lucy Bollinger, for that presentation in Mike's absence. I will like now to introduce Imre Hollow. Imre, you'd like to make the next part of the presentation.
Thank you very much. So first I would like to say that this presentation is about how the WHO receives the funds and how we're using it. So this is more about, or this is only about the WHO portion of the COVID response, and this is part of our accountability to member states and to donors and transparency about the way we're using the funds. This portal follows the same logic as our WHO program budget web portal, which many of you know. It uses the same principles, it uses the same underlying data, but of course it is not connected to the WHO results, but it is connected to the SPRP pillars. And the WHO web portal is only refreshed every quarter. This portal is refreshed every week, even sometimes more frequently. So first, where to find this portal? So if you go to the big the WHO external website, there is a big red button which is links you to the COVID page. And then at the very bottom of the COVID page, there's progress of contributions. And that's what you need to click on to find it. It's not so obvious. So if you click on that button, you will get to the overview, which shows you our donors ranked in the total donation they have been giving us. You can see that overall we have 76 donors who have given funds for the SPRP response. And you see how much they have given and how much have been utilized from the funds that they have given us. The next view is if you click on a donor that you can see, so I chose Norway, how much total funds Norway has given, how much we have used so far, and then you can see where the money was spent, so which regional office, which country office, and then you can see also which SPRP pillar. The next view is by SPRP pillars, and that shows you the available funds by pillars, and then you can get some more details if you click on that. And you can also get utilization, so how are the funds implemented by the pillars. And lastly, you can also have a country view, which is you click on a country, and here I chose Afghanistan. On the left-hand side, you can see which are the donors who have given funds to Afghanistan, and then you can see to which pillars the money was flowing, how the money was spent, and of course what the total utilization was and what the total funds that were available. Just like in the previous portal, all the raw data is also available for download and Excel export. So if you'd like to do your own analysis, you have all the data available for your reference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Imre. And now for the final component of this presentation, my pleasure to introduce Mr. Ludi Saranturo, the team lead for WHO in this area. Ludi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Armstrong. So we would like to bring you to the Strategic Partnership Portal landing page. So we would like to remind member states and partners that this portal has been established since 2015. of the last 5 years, we have received generously by country office and regional office, as well as member states, donor and partners, all the information data related to the IHR, as well as the health emergency preparedness. But it's also, in the landing page, you can see the world map over here, which you will be able to click the map immediately to zoom in terms of what are the country capacities, what are the profile. So I would like to walk you through a little bit about this from landing page into the country profile. So when you zoom into a country profile, in this case, I would like to give an example of Nigeria, thanks to the Nigeria CDC, who have provided all the information as well as latest donor landscape in Nigeria. Once you're landing in the Nigeria country profile, you can see on the upper tab, you have an overview, you have a hazard risk, you have country capacity, national plans, and resource landscape. When you arrive in the overview, we will find the general information regarding Nigeria in terms of population, neighboring countries, the latest preparedness emergency effort by Nigeria, and also partners on the ground. Then you have the IHR crosswalk, of which what Nigeria has done in terms of the self-assessment under the IHR, as well as the joint excellent evaluations. It gives you a crosswalk about how they are capacity into the preparedness and response. Once we understand about the overview, we can identify further about the country profile of Nigeria in terms of hazard and risk. So Nigeria, in this case, have done the strategic risk assessment. It is also linked to the WHO emergency dashboard regarding Nigeria past and presence of outbreak. This is a good reference for the future. But most importantly, on the right side of the bar, you can see the lowest indicators. The lowest indicators is the result from the joint excellent evaluations, of which allowing for the policy, the donors, the decision maker of the Nigerian government to address, to improve of their capacities. Once we have the overview on the hazard and risk, we can also identify the next step, which is the country capacities. In this country capacity page, we have a summary of country capacity that have done by the government of Nigeria, of which in here you can see that there are information related to the self-assessment report. We have the joint excellent evaluation, the IHR designated point of entry, the testing, the capacity to simulation exercise, the after-action review. When you click in each of these boxes, you can see the guide, the report that is resulted from these capacities. But it's also on the right side, as you can see, that is linkages of Nigeria in terms of universal health coverage 2030. You will see partnership activities, but it's also underneath its linkages to other bigger agendas such as the SDGs. Once we understand the overview of Nigerian capacities, we understand the hazard risks, we understand what has been done in Nigeria, we can also looking at how many plans that is currently available in Nigeria government. So in this case, Nigeria has done the costed National Action Plan for Health Security, also conducted and completed the Pandemic Influenza Preparedness Plan, Antimicrobial Resistance Plan, National Ebola Virus Disease Preparedness Plans, as well as Humanitarian Response Plan. We are providing in this page also a space for other future disease preparedness plans that might be arising in the future. Now, in this case, then, once we understand the hazard, the country capacity, the national plans, one is the most important part that we would like to share with you is the resource landscape. We need to understand that who are the active partners and donors in Nigeria. And also, in this case, that we have this tool, what we call it the resource mapping tool. This tool is allowing WHO together working in close partnership with partners and donors in Nigeria, also globally and regionally, as well as with multi-sectoral Nigeria government, different ministries, to sit down together to look at how many hazard risk capacity information, the assessment has been done, but it's also the national plan and aligning of different activities that is already existing in Nigeria. This is a reflection of IHR Article 44, of which the Secretariat is facilitating member states to mobilizing resources technically and financially. As a result from the resource mapping in 2019 in Nigeria, which is completed, we are able to map 156 million investment that is already happening in Nigeria prior to the COVID-19. This is comprising of 66 bilateral and multilateral, which is currently active in Nigeria. They are addressing and supporting Nigeria in the 19 technical areas required for the improvement of the IHR. And currently they have implemented 952 activities. In this resource landscape also, we are linking with the Collaborating Center, which is a very important database. And also this database is managed also in other clusters within the WHO, such as the Global Health Observatory, but it's also the UAC Partnership, the Workforce Partnership website. And this will give you an overview of the country capacity in different parts of the world. So in closing, we would like to express our appreciation to all member states who have provided a very rich information data, but it's also donor and partners for allowing to have an alignment and avoid duplication in the future. With that, I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ludi and colleagues, for your presentations. My intention now is to take a pause from the presentations from the Secretariat and our external participants. Her Excellency Vice Minister of Health Acosta from Dominican Republic and Professor Vala, Chair of the IHR Review Committee, and take a round of questions or comments from Member States on any of the, or all of the first three presentations that we have had this afternoon. As usual, I have assistance from the team here in Geneva, and today Fabio Longquist is here to support with the moderation. If Member States please have any questions or comments, raise your hand, and Fabio will moderate that. Following any round of questions that we have, I'll then give the floor to Dr. Bruce Alwood for the ACT Accelerator update. But over to you, Fabio.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you once again to all of our presenters today. If we could kindly remind those Member States wishing to take the floor to please raise your hand in the Zoom function. We might just give it a moment for those Member States to kindly do so. Thank you very much. I see that we have our first question, that being from Peru. Peru, the floor is now yours. Thank you.
Very much for giving me the floor, and thank you very much also to the WHO for organizing these regular briefings. Our appreciation to the Vice Minister of the Dominican Republic for her presentation and for sharing their experience in the fight against COVID-19. I have a question for Dr. Vila, in case he's still available, and this is regarding the cooperation and the sharing of findings with other mechanisms, which we believe is extremely important in light of the several mechanisms that are currently working together and potential overlaps that might exist. I didn't see the Global Preparedness Monitoring Board on the list that was provided in his presentation. A few days ago, the Director General, together with the members of the Global Preparedness Monitoring Board, presented the second report awarding disaster. And there is one specific section that deals with potential amendments to the international health regulation. So I was wondering if Dr. Vila can elaborate a bit on possible collaboration with that specific body as well. Thank you very much.
Can I answer directly, or do we sample of questions?
Thank you, Professor. We'll take a round of questions in the first instance, if we can indulge your patience, please, sir.
Thank you very much to Peru for the first question. I understand we also have Canada wishing to take the floor. Kristen, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good afternoon, colleagues, and thank you very much to all the presenters for those very helpful presentations. Following on Peru, we also have a question for Professor Weiler. And first, thank you so much for the engagement today. It's a really welcome update from the IHR Review Committee. It sounds like you have a very packed schedule ahead of you. You mentioned that you had met with the previous chairs of all the other IHR Review Committees. I'm just curious what some of the key lessons learned that they shared with you from their experiences, and the key challenges that you see going forward in your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Canada, for this question. As there are no further questions at this point in time, we would kindly invite Dr. Weiler to take the floor and to please provide responses to those questions from Peru and Canada. Thank you very much, Dr. Weiler. The floor is yours. Dr. Weiler, I'm just confirming that you are still with us and in a position to respond.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Please proceed. Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted, as always this happens here. Thanks for these important questions, and I'll be happy to answer them. So the first question regarding the DPMB, this board, we do not consider that there's an overlap between the functions and the tasks of our commission with the work and the visions of this particular board. We of course take care of the recommendation of this board, but in terms of operationalizational issues, we are more closely linked to the work of the other three boards, and so we consider those to be more important when it comes to overlapping issues that we do not want to do redundant work. So we will, for sure, we are aware of this board, but in terms of operational issues, we are closer to these others, and there we see more the possible interventions with redundancy. So we concentrate on these others. The second question, this I could, of course, answer for hours, but I don't want to stretch your time too much. So I think there were two kinds of issues. First of all, when it came to hurdles, to barriers, principal barriers. So the question, for example, will we go into so much depth that we open IHR? What will be the consequences if we target to opening IHR? Or should we come to a question where we got some advice from these two previous chairs? In addition, we got insights into some of the specific topics that have been problematized over the last years. And we have wonderful work from the Secretariat, the HR Secretariat, so which of the recommendations have been already set up, have been set up to a moderate level, or haven't been set up, and why this was. So basically, what are the difficulties we will have to be able to tackle? And the second round of issues, and I think what we all learn is, it's clear, we have to be very systematic because of the time frame that's, as you mentioned, very ambitious. And so first of all, very early, we have to decide on what topics we want to prioritize. We can't work on all topics, but which are the most important topics that we want to put our foot in and really work on. And this we have to decide over the next 2 or 3 weeks. And the other topic here from a procedural way are transparency. that's why we decided to have at least every 4 weeks open sessions. And we were very impressed by the fully transparent way that, for example, Dr. Feinberg did his work. But the reason here was that he had 3-day meetings, physical meetings, and he could invite press. So this is something we won't be able to do, but we decided that we want to be as open as possible, as transparent as possible. And what all of them very, very clearly made to us, and which we in principle knew before, but what was very important for us, I mean, it's the IHR is lived by the member states. So we need member states input as much as possible. And again, I just want to highlight this, and I want to really ask you to give as much as possible input to this reform as you can do. Thank you very much. That's basically the answer.
Thank you, Professor Wheeler, for that intervention. I understand, Fabio, that there are additional member states wishing to take the floor. I hand the floor back to you to introduce them, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you once again to Professor Wheeler. I understand that France would wish to take the floor. The floor is now yours. Thank you.
Oui, bonjour, merci. Trois séries de...
Thank you. There are 3 types of question and comment on the 2 proposals presented and on revision. On the IHR Review Committee, I understand that it welcomes all comments and all opinions that might be forwarded to it by the member states. After the Franco-German paper on WHO reform in general, France is also intending to provide some comments and proposals to the committee, to say that in passing. On the IHR Review Committee, would it be possible for you to remind us, please, how, from the recommendations that the committee is supposed to send to the Assembly in May 2021, we can follow a procedure, and what procedure is it in order to carry out a possible revision of the IHRs? Is a position going to be taken on the procedure to be followed? My second question on the partners portal. I understand by financiers, and thank you very much, incidentally, for the presentation. 2 questions. But let me first say that we hope the evaluation of this tool in particular will also be carried out, so that we know how much the development of the portal has cost the organization. And we'd also like to insist on the importance of having some feedback from the ground, from implementing partners and from beneficiary countries. What is their impression of this specific tool? Have they found it useful in the context of COVID-19? And if so, in what respect? And what possible improvements do they think can be made to it? On the portal that Ludi presented, I'd like to know, Ludi, if you don't mind, what your position is on setting up a peer evaluation process on country preparation. Do you think that this portal could be a useful basis for discussion, because it brings in an awful lot of information from different sources on efforts being made to strengthen the preparations undertaken by countries? Thank you.
Just want to mention that I don't speak France, so I'm sorry. Je ne parle pas français.
There should be some translation available.
Okay. Fabio, would you be willing to translate if you got the question? Could you do a summary of the question, please?
Sure. Would Dr. Major prefer to provide the translation? If not, I can gladly recite my notes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor Wheeler, our colleague from France, was asking 2 questions. The first one is about, are you considering to take the input from member states coming to you either as not verbal processes or ideas in the opening session in your work. And the Cluny from France inform us that France, of course, will provide their contribution through non-verbal process. The second commendation is what are the process and procedure to translate your recommendation to action, either through opening IHR or through other mechanism to make your recommendation included in the IHR processes. And this is the two questions, Professor Villa.
Thank you very much. Well, the first question, if I got it wrong, of course we, be it non-verbal or verbal, of course we take these and discuss them in our process. That's for sure. We constantly review these, and each of the subgroups that has been formed will prioritize these, and then we will in the group discuss these and see which of these interventions we will be able to handle. Clearly we will answer each and every of these interventions. So the second is the procedural aspect. So we have just far we are identifying which we think are the most prioritized areas, and the procedures will be developed in due course. But as we have just started to work, I can't give you an answer to this. We will decide on. We are interested in results that will lead. So we are interested in understanding why particular IHR issues weren't appropriate, and these are the ones that are most important. And if we decide that to solve this problem, we need to open IHR, we will recommend opening of IHR. And if not, we will, and if there are other issues, we will go to in implementation issues by amendments and by recommendations. We are just starting this process, and we're absolutely open to it. We just want to nail it down to a solution that basically will improve IHR delivery. Over.
Thank you very much, Professor Wheeler, and apologies that you were unable to access our interpretive services. We do, of course, have interpretation in 6 WHO official languages. And thank you, Dr. Major, for your role there. With that, I'd like to introduce Dr. João Major to also provide some commentary on the discussion that's been had. João, do you have the floor?
Thank you. I have to leave. I have to visit the minister. I just have to skip off. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Looking forward to our next meeting. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you, Professor Wheeler, and bye bye. Vielen Dank.
Je voudrais juste remercier Monsieur Bernard Dever pour cette importante question. Comme vous le savez, l'Organisation sanitaire internationale qui institue le comité de review
When we set up the review committee, the request was asking the chair to provide recommendations to the Director General, and it's the Director General who is responsible for communicating with the states party and with member states on the implementation of those recommendations. Generally speaking, there can be 3 groups of recommendation. Recommendation of a technical nature, which can be taken into consideration by the Director General and his team in the form of technical guides and other procedures. The second type of recommendation can be handled by discussions in the governing bodies of the organization or through an assembly resolution. And the last group of recommendation is one that may require agreement from member states, of course, and is based on the decision, but may lead to a possible reopening of the IHRs. As Professor Villar said, at the moment, the committee is still working. When the recommendations arrive on the Director General's desk, then there will be a discussion between the Director General and member states to see the best best way of implementing the recommendations. Over to you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Gerard, for that. In relationship to the question on the portal, now my pleasure to reintroduce Dr. Lucy Bollinger. Lucy, you have it.
Thank you. And in response to the question on the Partners Platform, which was about an evaluation as well as the cost to the organization, feedback from countries and improvements. So there is a results report that will be published on the 1st of October for the first 5 months of the platform. That will include feedback from countries, including their critical input on improvements to be made to the Partners Platform. As well, the cost to the organization is essentially been the HR of WHO staff. So this is a team of between 12 and 15 who have worked on developing the Partners Platform over the last 5 months. They come from 6 departments in 6 regions. So it's a cross-organizational cost sharing and the cost of those salaries. There was also consultation and consultants that were brought in as pro bono to assist with the development of the Partners Platform, and simply one third-party IT developer. I think the total costs most likely are under $2 million if you were to include all of the salaries. But we can do a more extensive evaluation, and we do invite any evaluation on the tool. Thank you. And I'll pass to Ludi now to answer on the SPH portal.
Just before, really, just to say that this type of agile working arrangement is something that would have been very difficult to implement in previous times. The idea that we can leverage people across the organization quickly with skills and expertise to deliver an output or a product that the organization needs quickly. This has been a real example of leveraging all of the skills within the organization to focus on the delivery of the product for our member states without incurring massive extra costs, and leveraging and utilizing the skills we have, bringing in pro bono and other resources, and really only making the extra investment where we need to bring in new skills and bring in new technologies. So I think it's a really good example of transformation in action. Again, thanks to Lucy and the others for their leadership in driving this agile cross-organizational approach to solving the problem.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. So thank you very much, Bernard, from the delegation of France. In response to your questions, basically the strategic partnership portal is providing an equal partnership between by scaling up the country ownership, working in close partnership, but it's also ensuring that WHO leadership. So indeed, the portal can be very useful for different purposes. First, for the policymaker within the country, for the decision maker within the country, technical people in the country will be able to understand and easy access to one-stop information regarding the latest of their capacities in terms of health emergency, but it's also an influencing factors like hazard risk. In addition to that, it's also allowing of the different partners and donors to avoid duplication of effort. I give you an example, like in Nigeria, in fact, that's a good example. We are mapping resources in 37 states. And here we are able to map not only just domestic financing, but it's also the external funding, allowing many partners to align, avoiding duplication. In terms of contribution to evaluate the preparedness, in every country is different in terms of the health emergency status. We are continuing to monitor and discuss with our regional colleagues and our country offices who are in the forefront. But it's also, we are developing this sustainable preparedness that is leveraging the current investment for the country to be able to address future public health events. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ludi. Fabio, just checking that there are no more member states with their flags raised. Over.
Thank you once again, Chair. No hands up at this stage. Once again, we would just remind those member states wishing to take the floor to please do so by raising your hand in the Zoom platform. And we may just give it a few seconds there, just in case. seems not to be the case. Back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you again, Fabio, and thank you to those member states, and also obviously to Professor Wheeler, who has had to leave. With that, I'd like to hand the floor to the DG, who has a few comments also. DG.
Yeah, thank you. I think, Mike, will you take the floor first? I think Mike wants to. No? Okay. So, I think everything has been addressed. Just wanted to add one, to give my share on one of the issues. This is regarding GPMB, and there was a specific question asking about the report directly, GPMB reporting to G20. I would like to give a bit of background first. As you know, we have announced the new design, the outcome of our transformation, March 2019, and which covered many areas, many strategic designs actually, to help us reform or transform WHO. And some of the announcements at that time, if you remember, were one, establishment of new division for preparedness, and the other was science division. Part of it could really help with emergency data, and also WHO Academy, especially WHO Academy focused on capacity building of WHO, but at the same time capacity building for member states. So in that package, during the transformation, we have also been working on establishing the GPMB, which was established now its second year actually, and this was part of the change we wanted to make in emergency preparedness, and it was established by WHO. Of course, the WHO took initiative, and later on we have invited the World Bank to convene the GPMB with us. So GPMB has nothing to do with the governance structure, but it's part of the Secretariat, but independent, and gives independent advice to WHO. That compared to, for instance, IPPR was established based on the request of the Assembly, so this is a governance structure now that will be reporting to you directly as has been presented earlier. IHR the same, and IOSE the same. These were again reiterated in the recent resolution of the last Assembly, the May Assembly, for the three of them to be activated and report to the resume, and of course beyond. So GPMB is not part of this. I think that has to be clear. It's not part of the stream. But since it focuses on monitoring preparedness and response, and it helps us on that, I think communicating with the three, and if there is anything that they can work with, having some alignments or conversation is important, but it's important to also know that there is a significant difference between the three and the GPMB. Then to why they were invited to G20, the presidency of the G20 asked us if they could present, because their report at that time was ready before the meeting of the Ministers of Finance and Health, the joint meeting. The GPMB report was ready. And the other report that was expected from WHO was also ready. Both of them were ready. So when the presidency of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia of G20 asked for the GPMB to also report or present their report, we agreed, and that's why after we reported, GPMB also reported its share. So that's how the GPMB was created, and also the recent presentation to the G20. Thank you.
ACT Accelerator. My pleasure to introduce Dr. Bruce Aylward, Senior Advisor for WHO. As you are familiar with Bruce's weekly updates, and Bruce, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tim, and apologies, Excellency, Attaché, ladies and gentlemen, as we get ourselves reorganized here. Every week in the ACT Accelerator seems to be busier than the last week, and the week in front of us is no less so. So what I would like to do, as we promised in previous briefings, was to make sure that you, our member states, know what to expect over the coming week in terms of events around the ACT Accelerator, and to provide you some insights on the content in some of these areas. So this first slide that I wanted to share just shows you three key issues. There's a lot of other things happening, but I think you'd want to be aware of these in particular. So first, tomorrow we are planning to release the core ACT Accelerator documents that were discussed by the Facilitation Council on the 10th of September, and which have been updated now with their comments as well as other comments from our pillars. And these are, of course, the ACT A Status Report and Plan, as well as the ACT Accelerator Economic Investment Case and Financial Requirements. I'm going to have a few slides to show you a few of the salient points in both of those, and the full detail, of course, will be in the documents when we release them tomorrow. And with Tim's assistance, we'll make sure it gets out to all our member states at the same time. The second event I wanted to alert you to is the ACT Accelerator event at the UN General Assembly on the 30th of September, which will be held from 8:30 to 10 a.m. That's Eastern Standard Time, New York time. I'll say a few words on that. And I don't have any slides on the issue, but I did want to alert you to the progress being made in the area of rapid diagnostics. You'll remember we briefed you some weeks ago from our diagnostics pillar on the great work that had been done between FIND, WHO, and the Global Fund in identifying and evaluating some high sensitivity, high specificity rapid antigen tests. These have now gone forward, one of them through WHO emergency use listing. We're just finalizing that and hope to have the details for it to present to you next week. We may have a word about it in the DG's briefer on the 28th of September, which is Monday, another important event to be aware of in member states. So first, to say a few words about the ACT Accelerator plan and the investment case that you see represented on this slide. The status report and plan, of course, provides an overview of the accelerator's goal, the approach, the achievements to date in the startup phase over the last 5 months, as well as the near-term priorities now as we make the big shift, the big step from the startup phase to the scale-up phase. The second document which accompanies it is the economic investment case and the financing requirements for the ACT Accelerator. So this lays out one of the economic rationales for a global investment in the ACT Accelerator as an integrated end-to-end solution, as well as what's needed in each of the pillars in the immediate term, in the longer term through next year. And as I mentioned in my introductory comments, this has been developed collectively by the partners in consultation with the Facilitation Council. I just want to show one or two slides on some of the content because I think it's so important to our member states and what we're trying to achieve as the ACT Accelerator. And first slide here is just to show through sort of a theory of change approach what the goal of the ACT Accelerator is and how we aim to achieve this. So the goal you see stated here, it's really focused on severe COVID-19 disease, because of course that is the problem that is overloading our hospitals, our ICUs. That is the problem that results in the extreme physical distancing, as you can see, and which ultimately results in the severe health, social, and economic disruption problems that we're seeing. And so if we overlay on this slide the different aspects of the ACT accelerator, you can see here through the lines the different intervention points that really try to address the issue of severe disease by preventing severe disease, reducing the risk of it, especially through the targeted rollout of vaccines targeting those at most at risk, through the new rapid diagnostics to better protect, prevent transmission, treat those who are affected, and then of course therapeutics to reduce the risk of death in those with severe disease, all of course supported by stronger health systems and of course equitable allocation. So on top of that sort of theory of change, the plan lays out some specific targets for each of these three areas. So we have numeric targets as well, around 2 billion doses of vaccine to be distributed by the end of 2021, 500 million tests by mid-2021, and 250 million therapeutic courses, all with the goal of substantially changing the nature of this disease. Because of course it's that severe disease that drives the fear of COVID-19 and has such consequences for the confidence, whether of consumers, individuals, countries, and corporations. So it's really the key to getting out of this crisis. The other thing that the plan lays out is how our critical path has been adapted, and you can see here using accelerated and parallel work streams to much more rapidly achieve the goals of equitable distribution and development equitable distribution of these new tools. I won't go through this, but this is all laid out in the document. With this slide, I just wanted to highlight some of the key landmarks that we've talked about over the last few weeks, and it's only a few of the ones that are a result now of the startup phase of the ACT Accelerator. But the plan lays these out in terms of now the new proof that we have of that we can achieve high sensitivity, high specificity, rapid antigen tests, which could be a real game changer now in the ability to control this disease in the near term, medium term. With the vaccines area, of course, the COVAX facility is now in business, as you heard earlier this week, with 159 countries now part of this, and that number growing. The access allocation framework is out there and now increasingly the emerging standard for how we approach the allocation of these, and dexamethasone, of course, in the rollout. All of these very, very concrete outcomes of the tremendous collaboration, which is the ACT Accelerator. The plan will also lay out some immediate priorities for the period September to December 2020, and it is these priorities that require the step change in financing over the next 3 months, from the $3 billion in the startup phase to the $15 billion that's needed in the scale-up phase. So all of this is included in the plan. Then the plan and the investment case and financial requirements lay out for you the budget, and you see on the left-hand side of the slide, it's a $35 billion gap over the next 18 months. On the right-hand side of the slide, this is a little analytic that comes out of the economic rationale and argument that just demonstrates that that investment, as substantial as it sounds, would be repaid within 36 hours once international mobility and trade are restored. And the key to restoring international mobility and trade is very much a global solution that equitably distributes the tools needed to reduce the risk of severe disease. So these are some of the salient points that are laid out in those two documents, which you will receive tomorrow. Now, in terms of, just looking forward in terms of some of the key events to try and mobilize the financial requirements and the international cooperation needed for the ACT Accelerator's plan. The next big event after the Council and then after the G20 Finance and Health Ministers meeting is the ACT Day events at the UN General Assembly. As I mentioned, it's going to be held on the 30th of September. You see with this little diagram here or schematic, this is the invitation, the save the date, and the invitation which has gone out from the Secretary General's office. It was also distributed by our governing bodies to our member states as well. This slide here is just, it's in the deck for your convenience, and it just provides a high-level overview of the event and what it looks like, including the high-level opening segments and then the specific focus on both the COVAX facility and some of the new tools prior to a closing segment with some new commitments and a call to action. You have at the bottom of this slide how to register for the event and access it. I'd like to remind you as well that this is one, of course, of a number of events that are part of the ACT Day advocacy campaign, the arc of which you can see here, and which has the primary goal of trying to translate now the strong political momentum that we have behind the ACT Accelerator into the financing needed for this scale-up phase, which is immediately in front of us right now. So with that, perhaps back to you, Tim, and just this last slide, just remind you of three of the bigger issues that are coming up over the next 7 days. The release of the core documents, which we will, of course, get out to you tomorrow, the ACT Day event at the UN General Assembly, and then next week we'll have two events to talk about rapid diagnostics, the progress on those, and the hope for those as a game changer in this crisis moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruce. We have a little bit of time remaining, so there is an opportunity for one last round of questions or comments from member states on the presentation that Bruce just gave, or indeed from the presentations earlier today. So with that, Fabia, back to you, please, to moderate any interventions.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to Dr. Elwood for this presentation on ACT Day. As mentioned, we would now go to a round of questions. Should there be any questions from member states? I don't see any hands up at the moment. And I do see a hand up. Thank you very much. Peru, you have the floor. Thank you. Over.
Thank you. Apologies for taking the floor again. Just a quick question to Dr. Elwood. In this regarding the event in New York on the 30th of September, if you can kindly clarify if the invitations have been sent out through the UN Secretary General Office in New York, or if the invitations have been sent out by WHO here in Geneva. We would appreciate very much clarification on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Peru for this question regarding the invitation. We'll just see whether there are any further questions from member states, and if not, we would hand back to Dr. Elwood to kindly respond to this question from Peru. And seems to be none. Over to you. Thank you, Dr. Elwood.
Thank you, Fabia. Sorry, I should have been clearer. Apologies to colleagues from Peru. The Save the Date document, which lays out the date and the purpose of the event, was sent out by all of the co-hosts, the UK, WHO, South Africa as well as the Secretary General's office as the convener of the event. And as the convener of the event, the Secretary General's office is actually extending the invitations for the speaker positions in the event.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Thank you once again to all the contributors today, Her Excellency Vice Minister of Health of the Dominican Republic, Professor Wheeler, IHR Review Committee, and the Secretariat for your presentations. Much appreciated, the member states who have contributed actively today. And with that, I thank you very much again for your participation and look forward to seeing you again next week. Have a good afternoon, evening, good